For their conduct and negligence, TriStar was issued 6 citations by MSHA. They consented to having violated all 6 laws, and they paid a penalty of over $100,000. These violations were for inspection of the highwall, failure, inspecting the site as required by law following a heavy rainfall event, failure, maintaining a record of the observed hazardous conditions, and there were many, failure, maintaining the requiring benching on the high wall so that it would step down and not be susceptible to a catastrophic failure, failure. And they were cited for specifically placing these miners in highly dangerous conditions. The Mine Safety and Health Administration concluded that TriStar demonstrated aggravated conduct and unwarrantable failure and high negligence. Those are MSHA's words. Coal is an important commodity, and a lot of good comes from our mining coal, not the least of which it provides an employment base for some of the historically more needy areas of our country. But just because you live in West Virginia, or Western Maryland, or Kentucky, you should not be considered a second-class citizen when it comes to your right to a safe work environment. Mining coal can be a dangerous activity, but virtually every dangerous activity and job in America has seen vast improvements in safety over the last 50 years, including coal mining. When you do it right, it is considerably safer than it was 100 or even 50 years ago. But when you don't, the results are horrible. These companies had a responsibility to these men, to their families, and to the wider family of coal miners. They let them down. Now, they need to be held accountable, and that's what we will do. On behalf of the Wilt family and our firm, we thank you very much for your presence today, and I'll be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
I guess I'd ask on behalf of the family, what justice in this way will kind of help any kind of healing that they're still going through?
A major part of the civil process, and a reason why civil justice is important, is because it can hold a corporation accountable for their failures, in this case negligence. The hope is that by conducting themselves in this way, by pursuing the civil litigation, it will change corporate conduct. And that is critical. In this case, it would not have been difficult and would not have cost anything to keep these miners out of a highly dangerous condition. That was not done. We need them to be held accountable so that the next miners who are in a perilous position like this are not forced to go down into that pit. And so that is the central reason why these families chose to pursue this litigation.
Have you found any other cases that were similar to this? What have you been basing a lot of your research off of?
There are many, regrettably, mining disasters that follow a series of violations. Very much in the news right now are the circumstances from West Virginia, where a high number of violations took place. And even though the inspectors have not yet been able to get into the mine to do a full investigation, it is clear that in that instance, the violation of an abundance of methane gas being exposed to the miners and exposed to the slightest spark, which could ignite everything, was a factor in that disaster. there are many other mining disasters and other cases of negligence where a failure to heed warnings, obvious signs, places a duty, responsibility on the part of the landowners or the company owners to take precautions to provide for the safety of their employees. That was not done in this case.
Why did you decide to include all of the people as the defendants, including even the landowner?
Landowners have an obligation to inspect their property and make sure that there are no dangerous conditions. Just as a landowner might have to repair a sidewalk that was heavily cracked or had a hole in it to keep individuals from harming themselves, the landowner here has a duty to inspect their property and make sure that it does not contain dangerous conditions. The engineers who have been sued in this case also had a responsibility to these workers by providing accurate maps. The maps provided to the government did not contain these underground mining, previous underground mining, in violation of the law. The highwall, which was approved for 125 feet, rose to a height of 275 feet. There was no benching that was adequate in the high wall that would have kept this type of catastrophe from happening. The engineers are required to certify these things, and it was absent from what had been provided to the government. And lastly, we sued a safety training individual, an expert, who comes into the mine and teaches the miners and the owners about safety. In this instance, M. Shaw concluded that the training did not take into account the underground mines, the fractured rock, or the water problems. These were the fundamental and essential elements of why this failure took place. And so we believe, for having not taught these miners what they need to be looking out for so that they could help protect themselves, they are accountable as well.
Why wasn't that taken into account on safety inspections?
We don't know. We don't know why things that were visible and obvious were not taken into account. That's one of the things we hope to learn through discovery in this case. And that's one of the things that civil litigation allows us to do on behalf of these families. We can ask questions and get answers. These are answers that not only these families, but all of the coal mining families in this region are entitled to have.
Were there any blemishes or tarnishes on past inspections of TriStar or anything of that nature?
Yes, there were. There were prior violations, and we believe that they show a pattern that this company had employed in their activities. But in addition to violations that had previously been cited, following this event, these 6 violations that they agreed and consented to were perilous and led, regrettably, to this unfortunate circumstance. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate your being here with us today.